I, 27 female, screamed at my husband, 28 male, over his hobbies, and now he's changed and I don't know how to fix this. Hey everyone, I need some advice about a situation with my husband. I'm 27 female, he's 28 male, and we've been married for 4 years. He has a room where he keeps all his hobbies: sim racing, aviation setups, soccer analysis tools, Lego sets, music production equipment. Basically, it's his sanctuary. He's super analytical and loves writing down and dissecting things, from sports to politics. He's slightly on a spectrum and very introverted, so he doesn't have close friends. I'm really the only person he shares everything with. He's always inviting me into his space to be part of his interests. I love him and appreciate that he wants to include me, but sometimes I just need some time for myself. Recently, I snapped. I yelled at him, saying some hurtful things that I didn't mean, like how his interests bore me, that he needs to get a social life. I'd even questioned why I married him. I regret every word, but my anger got the best of me and I couldn't control it in that moment. Since then, he's completely changed. He stopped spending time in his room, moved to sleeping on a couch, and barely talks to me. He even ignored our usual tradition of watching our home nation's soccer team play, something he'd never skipped before. Instead, he was working on his laptop, breaking our no work at home rule. When I asked him about it, he said he didn't care about the game and mentioned that maybe he should be more like his father, who's a workaholic and who my husband idolizes. He even added, I don't blame him for divorcing at that age now. I've apologized multiple times, but he just says, it's okay, maybe you're right, and shuts down any attempts I make to talk about his interests. I'm terrified he's considering divorce. I know I messed up, but I don't know how to rebuild trust and help him feel valued and loved again. I don't want to lose him, but I'm unsure how to approach this and make amends. Any advice? Now for the top advice. You didn't just criticize his hobbies, you degraded him, saying he needs a social life and asking why you married him. Did you even try to talk to him frankly before you snapped? Did you tell him that you needed some space? Or did you just stuff it all down until one day you screamed it all out? Instead of apologizing, I suggest that you see if he's willing to go to couples counseling with you, where y'all can work on communication and trying to move past this incident. Seriously, she literally just told him that they have nothing in common, that he is a bore to her, that they can clash on fundamental levels, like the social thing, and outwardly questioned why she married him in the first place. And now she's surprised he's thinking about divorce? Girl, you are the one who put that idea in his head, and then yelled a laundry list of valid reasons for him to leave you. Honestly, I also wonder why you got married. I hope he does get a social life. Maybe he'll meet someone he actually has something in common with. I have a relative who complained to me that her husband was forever in their garage tinkering on an old car. Apparently, he should have been inside talking to her. I asked whether she'd ever thought of going into the garage with some drinks and a chair and chatting with him and reading. She said no, and then pointed out to her that unlike her first husband, at least she knew where to find him during his leisure time. Her first had several girlfriends. She just looked at me for a minute and then stopped complaining. There is a comfortable chair in their garage now, as well as a television and a small bookshelf. I'm no hero, but 20 years later, they're still happily together. Questioning why you married him is a really awful thing to sling at someone, regardless of anger or honesty. You can talk out what you regret saying, but him pulling away is understandable. Right, I was saying there's no way one can come back from saying stuff like that. That is hurtful, and quite frankly puts off a lot of people. I wouldn't even be surprised if he chooses to move out at some point. He's already isolating himself from her, which is step 1. She broke him. It's hard for any man to come back from that. Being truly broken is the worst feeling in the world, and you just feel like you're going through the motions of every day. Every hope, dream, goal, and happiness is gone. It's what I imagine he feels like. Next story. Planning on proposing this weekend, but my 25 male girlfriend, 23 female, gave me an ultimatum to propose. Help? My girlfriend basically told me last night that if she didn't receive a ring by the end of the year, she would break up with me. The problem is, I already have a ring and was planning on proposing on her birthday this weekend. I met my girlfriend in college and we've been together for almost 3 years. This girl is my best friend, and I can't imagine my life without her. I've never felt this way about anyone before. We've talked about getting married and starting a family. The thing is, I've been working on my business and trying to become financially stable to support our future family. My girlfriend knows all of this, which is the crazy part. My girlfriend doesn't have a job currently, and I've been supporting both of us. This isn't a big deal for me since I'm in a position where we can afford to live like this. These past quarters, I've finally started seeing returns from my business. All the hard work I've put in over the past 4 years is starting to pay off. We're on track to have a massive year. My girlfriend has been looking at houses over the past few months, not to buy, but just to see what's out there when we're ready. Everything was set in motion. My girlfriend's birthday is this Sunday, and we're having a party at our place as far as she knows. I had the entire proposal planned out with her best friend. Her best friend was going to bring her to the aquarium where we had our first date. I already talked with the aquarium staff about the proposal. They were going to play our song on the speakers, and I planned to do it in front of the penguin exhibit, her favorite animal. I even hired a professional photographer. I've also already asked her parents for permission to propose. Now I'm in a bad spot. I feel like I'll lose either way. Last night, during dinner, my girlfriend suddenly broke down and started crying. I've never seen her like that before. She told me she doesn't understand why I won't marry her. She said she's been there for me since day one and told me that if I didn't propose by the end of the year, she would leave. At first, I thought maybe she had found out and was messing with me, but I know her really well. Her tears and emotions were genuine. I know her friends are getting engaged and married, and maybe she feels left out or jealous. But I don't want to propose because of an ultimatum. Now I'm not even sure if I want to go through with the proposal on Sunday. All my friends are saying you can't reward this type of behavior, but I'm not sure. I don't know if she just had a breakdown or what. This is the first time I've ever seen her this upset. Are you not sure about doing it this weekend because it will seem forced, or because you no longer are sure you want to marry her? Your answer changes my advice. Yeah, anyone who at 23 is unemployed and living on her boyfriend's dime and then throws an ultimatum about marriage is nuts, honestly. He is barely old enough to propose, and she is not old enough or mature enough to be engaged. 3 years would be a decent time to wait if they were 10 years older, but they are so young. She's lucky he didn't take out the ring and hand it to her and says he's going for a walk. She obviously hasn't discussed this ultimatum idea with her best friend either. Please don't propose this weekend. Give yourself at least a week to think about whether this is what you want for your life. Hold on to the ring. And honestly, if you do decide to propose later, you don't have to do all that fuss. Just give it to her one night after dinner. And if she is upset there's no fuss, tell her you put a lot of effort into it the first time and her ultimatum made you rethink what you wanted. If she's upset there's no fuss after that, it's one more sign maybe she isn't the one. He needs to insist that she works. There is no good reason that she doesn't, and isn't good for either of them to have him financially supporting her. She needs to be gaining work experience, and she needs money to be going toward retirement. Otherwise, in 10 years, he will see half of everything he was going to her, and he will be starting over. That's a bit complicated. Because on one hand, I can understand how you'd want to put things on pause until you can sit down and have a talk about both of your feelings about marriage and engagement timelines. Ideally, it would have been better to do this before she broke down on you, but the second best time is now. On the other hand, there isn't necessarily anything about this sudden ultimatum that necessarily changes your plans. You were planning on proposing to her anyway, well within her timeline expectations, and you could always talk to her later about how you had this proposal planned well before she gave you the ultimatum. In my opinion, have a talk with her as soon as possible about each of your feelings on marriage and wedding timelines, and confirm with her that you're on the same page. Then carry on with the Sunday proposal. Oh, and let us know how it goes. It's also not as if he could throw that entire proposal together in 48 hours with a photographer and everything. And if she thinks so, he's got the receipts. Honestly, bad breakdown worthy conversation, but not a complete deal breaker if the rest of the relationship is okay. I don't really understand why he wouldn't just tell her it was gonna happen and she shouldn't worry about it while she was crying. Why let her girlfriend got wrong out for the sake of his surprise? Now for the update. I want to thank everyone for their responses and advice. One of the questions I'm getting is why my girlfriend doesn't work. She just graduated last year with a degree in biology. Unfortunately, she's been having a difficult time finding a job because we live in a rural area. She's always there for me when I need her help with my business. Honestly, I've already told her that she doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to. I had a conversation with her best friend last night, and she informed me that she might have said some things to throw my girlfriend off track. I didn't tell her best friend about my girlfriend's breakdown. Since the whole thing happened, my girlfriend has been a bit distant and has been giving me the silent treatment. As of right now, I'm 80% leaning toward going through with the original plan. I still want to marry her, but the ultimatum part is bothering me. Like, how could she say she would leave after everything we've been through together? Her best friend and little sister are flying in tonight for her birthday/proposal on Sunday. Two of my closest friends, who are basically my brothers, are coming also, the ones y'all referring to as idiots. And yes, they are singles. As for why I planned a proposal on her birthday, it's because when her older sister got engaged on her birthday, she told me that's what she wanted. Regarding the ring, I've had it for 2 years already. I bought it when we went to the mall during college and she showed me her favorite ring there. I actually just finished paying off the credit card for it last month. Do I think she's actually going to leave on January 1st? No, I don't think she would actually leave. Knowing her, she might leave for the day, but she'd be right back home before it gets dark. Last story. My 40 female husband, 40 male, has been going to therapy to work on his temper and his therapist reported him to CPS. He's saying he no longer go to therapy because of this. How do I keep him engaged in the therapy needed to do the work? So me, 40 female, and my husband have been together for about 10 years, married for 5 of them. We have 1 child, 3 male. My husband has always had a short fuse, been argumentative, and struggled with managing his anger. It's taken me a long time to convince him to go to therapy. About a year ago, he finally agreed to start. However, it recently became clear that he hasn't been open and honest with his therapist, and I've continually encouraged him to be transparent so he can address his issues. For reference, he's never hit or hurt me or our son. I describe him more as a yeller, someone who tries to avoid conflict by being loud. This isn't a healthy dynamic for the home, so I've been insistent on him seeking help. In rare instances, he has thrown something, never at me or our son. One of these instances was recent, and I told him he needed to be honest with his therapist to help him understand why this is his reaction and to work on healthier responses. He had a session this week and asked to increase the frequency of his sessions. I was relieved that he was being honest and recognized the need for more than the monthly sessions he had been doing. However, today's CPS left a card on my door and wants to talk to me regarding concerning behavior with Dad. Clearly, I know who made a report, and so does my husband. I've already arranged to meet with CPS. But now, the issue I'm facing is that my husband, who was already distrustful of the system and sensitive to the stigma surrounding it, has become even more distrustful. I'm also feeling frustrated because this specific incident was something I'd consider reportable. He threw my son's Play-Doh into the yard after my son played with it on a deck and refused to clean it up. I'm a PhD clinician, so I'm very familiar with the system and extremely protective of my and my son's safety and well-being. While my husband's temper is a current challenge, he has been actively taking steps to work on it. I love him very much, and I love our family. As long as he's committed to making changes, I've agreed to support him. I've made it clear, though, that I will leave if things don't improve because his temper and unpredictability aren't healthy for our home. Now, he's told me that he's going to stop going to therapy because, in his words, this is what happens when I'm honest in session. Does anyone have advice on how to keep him engaged in therapy? I'm feeling a whole host of emotions, mostly sadness that someone seeking help was reported for an anger outburst, reinforcing his distrust in the system and discouraging him from being honest in his self-work. I'm also frustrated that his therapist, who has repeatedly reminded him they're a mandated reporter, didn't feel the need to tell him they would be reporting this particular disclosure. I know it's not required, but I've always operated on that ethical principle with those I've treated. I feel like without his commitment to getting help and working on this, our marriage will fail. I'm also a PhD clinician. So you are aware that a therapist would not call CPS over some yelling. Also, if it wasn't the therapist, he threw it outside, so maybe the neighbors had enough of him flipping out and yelling at his family that they made a phone call. I mean, if he's been like this always, there are plenty of people probably worried about the kid. This is my thought too. Sounds like neighbors have heard lots of frequent yelling and the sounds of things being thrown. That would be my top bet. The kid is 3 years old. There is no reason to scream at a 3-year-old and throw his toys out in the yard. Kids this age need to be talked to in a normal voice and told what they've done wrong. Maybe he gets a timeout. This guy should not be parenting until he gets his anger under control and learns how to be a father. Yup, and to a little child, that kind of behavior tends to kick their nervous system into fight or flight. A rageful caregiver is an existential threat, and a little toddler's brain/body has no way to know that grown-up, who they rely on for basic needs and love, isn't going to physically hurt or abandon them. In fact, even for adults, dealing with someone who is raging out by yelling and throwing things can have a similar effect. It's just that with kids, the consequences tend to be much deeper as it literally shapes how their psyche and nervous system develop. But for example, in many places it is legally considered physical assault to do things like punch walls, throw objects in rage, get up in someone's face while screaming, etc. Even if you never actually hit the other person. If there is threatening behavior that would cause a reasonable fear that the person may physically attack you, that can legally be considered assault. A person's body might react to those things as imminent threats, so even if the person never hits you and only the wall, it still causes harm. Healthcare professionals are required to make referrals if there is an indication of abuse. So it might not have been the therapist who dropped the dime, if what you are saying is true about his behavior. Yes, you are correct. However, the state I'm in requires a 24-hour response to any report. The response was less than 24 hours after his appointment, and he did talk about yelling and throwing the Play-Doh. So while I am using deductive reasoning, you're correct, it could have come from anywhere. But only 3 people know of this specific incident, and my husband and I are 2 of them. And regardless if it was the therapist or not, I'm just really struggling with him dismissing therapy in response to this, rather than him seeing that this is also a product of his temper. I guess he's feeling like how can he trust someone to help him if they'll just keep turning him over to CPS. I've never really sat on both sides of this, I guess, so I'm just stuck.